So, Cambridge Africa is about making Cambridge available to support Africa, African researchers, African universities. So, what basically Cambridge Africa is an umbrella organisation which actually coordinates across the university and a number of different schemes. Here are some of the major ones. Thrive, we're supporting a network of African institutions in Rwanda, Kenya, Tanzania and Uganda, supported by the Wellcome Trust. MUII is also in East Africa. CAPREx, a partnership supported by the Carnegie Foundation of New York between Cambridge, the University of Ghana, and Makerere University in Uganda, and Cambridge Africa Research Fund and new Cambridge scholarships. So basically, these programs support a range of models which are fundamentally about mentoring and supporting African PhDs in African universities on African problems. This is our really main and favourite model. This not only provides Cambridge facilities and help to PhDs, African PhDs, but it also builds capacity within their home universities. And this is, for example, supported by PhD scholarships supplied by MUII and Thrive. We also, very importantly, what do you do when you've got your PhD? It's very crucial that you go on to develop a postdoctoral research career, and become competitive internationally. And Cambridge can mentor and help that. We have world-class research groups across all subject areas, and the idea is to make those available to partner and mentor African postdoctoral careers, again, in their African home universities. And we have fellowships with visiting fellowships here and support to the fellows in their home universities supplied by MUII and Thrive and CAPREx. Also importantly, we've been able to get support from the Alborada Trust, which allows us to give small grants of between £2,000 and £20,000 for new research and training collaborations between Cambridge and African applicants or co-PIs on any subject at all. And these, I'll just briefly mention, these have supplied a whole new range of collaborations between our university and African universities. And we also have now the Cambridge PhD scholarships. These are scholarships actually in Cambridge itself. These are Cambridge scholarships, and they're actually funded by the Cambridge Trust and the Cambridge University Strategic Fund, but we try and make sure that they focus on research in Africa for African relevant subjects, and hopefully with candidates, brilliant candidates, who are going to return to Africa to work on and support African research. So I'm proud of this slide, which I updated this morning. It shows you, just for example, many of the different parts of Africa that Cambridge Africa collaborates in. In CAPREx, for example, we've, over the last 3-4 years now, supported 52 postdoctoral fellowships. The latest 14 just started this year. 10 of them, I think, are here today, having arrived in Cambridge. And importantly, 12 research administration fellowships, where we're helping to train research administrators within the University of Ghana and Makerere, coming here with our research office, working together, having courses, and developing the ability to actually fund and administer research. And with the Alborada Trust, I've just updated this on what we're going to give out today, or this week, and now we've funded 120 joint awards in 13 different African countries for new collaborations in research and training between Cambridge and African co-applicants. And again, now we've added the Cambridge Africa scholarships. We're adding in new countries for our collaborations and support. But it's not just about academic relationships, it's about, we don't want Africans, colleagues coming here and just spending their time looking down a microscope. We want them to join in, We want them to experience an international university. We want to see them enjoy and make relationships which are lasting in Cambridge and with Cambridge. So not only do they work in the labs, but they actually join in college life, learn to ride bicycles, and all the essential things about being in Cambridge. And also, crucially, we're Cambridge Africa supports showcase seminars for African researchers, events, and talks to the African students and gets feedback for them and says to them, basically, I think this was for the first time, what do you think's good about Cambridge and what do you think's not good about Cambridge? And it was in forums like this, when we first started them, I found out for the first time that Cambridge, like practically all British universities, for postdoctoral applicants, for postgraduate applicants for courses, charged £50, which had to be paid by credit card, just to get an application form. And this was absolutely crippling. Our students told us that if you were trying to apply to come to Cambridge from Africa, and what you had to do to get an application form was pay by credit card, which you may not have, to actually get the form before you could apply. I'm pleased, delighted to say that we've made some progress, and if you look at the graduate admissions page now for the university from last month, Cambridge at least is waiving the £50 fee for all applicants from ODA. Group 1 and Group 2 countries. That takes most of the African countries out having to pay any fee to apply. There are still 1 or 2 in there, so we've still got some way to go. But I think this is a major, seems small, but it's a major thing to make Cambridge open for African students and fellows. Let me just tell you, it's on lots of different levels that we learn to interact with Africa. This is Humphrey Mzingo, who is just from Tanzania, and he's just last year got his PhD from MUII University in Uganda, with supervision jointly from Uganda and from Cambridge. In fact, I was his mentor in Cambridge. Humphrey was working on HIV and interactions with bilharzia, a chronic parasitic disease, in fishing communities on the south shores of Lake Victoria in Tanzania. And when he got his PhD, and he's now doing extremely well as a postdoc and getting research funds in Tanzania, but when he got his PhD, he wrote me a delightful and touching message saying how grateful he was that his visit to his time in Cambridge had brought all his childhood dreams to come true. And I was really touched. But it wasn't until later in the message that I realized he wasn't talking about the academic elements of Cambridge, but he was actually talking about the fact that I could take him to the Arsenal, to Emirates, to watch his boyhood team, even though it was, as I remember, it was a dull 1-1 draw against Everton. Nonetheless, this had made Humphrey's childhood dreams come true. This is not trivial, though. This is not trivial. And I know it's not trivial because when I spent time in African villages throughout the years, working with African colleagues, when electricity finally arrived in many of those villages in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, the first thing that happened is on Saturday nights, it was football nights for the Premier League. And actually, even though I had a season ticket for the Arsenal, when I was working in Africa, I never had to miss a game when I was working on Saturday night in an African village. But in many ways, actually, watching those games in the communal TV with beers, with half the village there watching the Arsenal, actually, in many ways, that's more memorable to me and more enjoyable than actually going to the Emirates themselves or many aspects of my work in Africa. So it's a two-way street. We both get pleasure from working with each other at many levels. So Cambridge Africa started in 2008 and now progressed to 2016, and it's gone from individual partnerships long-term partnerships between Cambridge and African colleagues to an institutional, university-wide commitment to Africa. And we have to thank so many Cambridge and African friends and supporters for making this transformation and getting us where we are. I'd just like to mention a few. And the first I'd like to mention is our immediate post Pro-Vice Chancellor International Strategy, Jennifer Barnes, who on many occasions came with us to Africa. Here she is in the University of Ghana with the then Vice Chancellor and senior members of the University of Ghana to support partnerships between Africa and Cambridge, and here again in Uganda. This was incredibly important to us to show the commitment of this university to its African partners in supporting Africa. So thank you, Jennifer. And on a sadder note, I'd like to record my thanks to Sir Patrick Sissons, the Regius Professor of Physics up until 2012 for the university. Patrick, despite his huge responsibilities in clinical medicine in the UK and in Cambridge, nonetheless was a supporter of Cambridge Africa and a passionate supporter of Cambridge Africa from its very inception. And Patrick found time to come with us again to Uganda and not just interact with the students and the fellows and our partners, but also participate in all the peripheral activities one has to go through in Uganda. And here's Patrick being intrepid. Patrick died a few weeks ago, but was a generous and kind man, and our sympathies go to his family and all his friends and colleagues, both in Cambridge and in Africa. So thank you, Patrick. So I'm just here briefly to welcome you to Cambridge Africa Day 3. This is our third Cambridge Africa Day, and our other major and crucial supporter throughout the process of becoming an activity for enthusiasts to being an institutional commitment. A commitment, by the way, which is now becoming influential, not only to other universities in this country. Pauline and I have been invited on Friday to go to the launch of Africa Oxford Initiative, which to be, well, is unashamedly copying Cambridge Africa. We've advised them, and we've agreed to go along and have their support. And once they get up and running properly, we're talking about maybe having a joint Cambridge-Oxford Africa alliance, making the facilities of both Oxford and Cambridge fully available to supporting African research and African science. We're also talking, for example, to the Kenyan Minister of Education about new PhD scholarship schemes they want to start up with us as partners, and the African Academy of Science for new postdoctoral fellowship schemes, modelled on what we've been doing here with CAPREx. So it's becoming an influential model. I think it's important that it's not just Cambridge doing this. I think all the universities, leading universities around the world, should be getting together to offer their support for African universities, because African research-led universities are vital for the continued process of African development and success. And what they're short of in the short term is the mentorships from internationally competitive. Great scientists, great researchers in Africa, but just not enough of them to actually mentor the millions of young researchers that are going to be necessary over the next few years. And one of the most other important people in supporting this process in Cambridge has been our Vice-Chancellor, Professor Sir Lesnik Brozovic, who has actually throughout been a passionate supporter of Cambridge Africa and been an advocate for Africa, both within Cambridge but also eloquently and passionately in the international scene. So thank you also, Vice-Chancellor, for your support. So on with the programme, enjoy your day, and thank you very much indeed for coming. You're all very welcome.